Alrighty, so mentioned to you that we had the following, and so this is what we have. So on this left side, we talked about how on this left side we mentioned that we had already done number one, which was converting percents to fractions, and what that looked like. That looked like, well, we got 2, 4, and 6 on this side, and then we have this part over here. So our percents to fractions will be on this back side, and then we have the example here, 42%. The percent is equal to 42 over 100. And in here, this middle section is where we have our steps or our directions on what we did. And what do we do? Well, we just rewrite the percent over 100. And then the second thing we did is simplify. And what does simplify mean? Simplify just means to make smaller. And what does that look like? Well, 42 over 100. If we're able to divide both of these numbers by the same factor just means a number, then we can simplify or make the fraction even smaller. And we actually can. The number that we can divide both of these by is 2. So when we divide both of these by 2, we end up with 21 and 50. So the simplified fraction is 21 over 50. What about number 3, which was our fractions to decimal? What does that look like? Let's erase all this. I'm going to give myself a little bit more space. So how do we convert fractions to decimals? What's our example? Our example is 1/8, and we're going to convert that to a decimal. Remember, this top number is the numerator, and this bottom number is the denominator. And what we're going to do is merely divide the numerator by the denominator. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, our numerator goes inside, and the denominator goes on the outside of the house. And then we're just going to do long division. Let's divide. How many groups of 8 can we subtract from 1? Well, that's 0. Remember, the decimal stays exactly where it is. How many groups of 8 can we subtract from 10? Well, that'd be 1. 10 minus 8 is equal to 2. Bring down to 0. How many groups of 8 can we subtract from 20? That'd be 2 groups of 8, because 2 times 8 is equal to 16. Subtract remainder 4. Bring down to 0. How many groups of 8 can we subtract from 40? 5. Leaving us with nothing, so that our final answer is that 1/8 is equal to 0.125. And what were the steps again? We divided the numerator by the denominator. And then last but not least on our list is what we were calling number 5. And number 5 is converting a decimal into a percent. So how do we convert a decimal to a percent? The decimal we're going to have is 0.75. We're going to convert that to 75%. Well, what do? Step 1 is we're going to multiply by 100. And what that looks like is wherever the decimal is, we're just moving it over 2 places. I know if you look at it, one of my teacher friends said that, you know what, Mr. Pierre, when you move that decimal over 2 places, it looks like a pair of butt cheeks. It does. So when we multiply by 100, we're moving the decimal over to the right 2 places. And then the second step is add the percent sign. Alright, so all of this we did in class. The left side of 1, 3, and 5, we did that in class. We're now going to move over to the right side and do 2, 4, and 6. Alright? And on the right side, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert a percent. We're going to convert a percent to a decimal. We're going to go in the opposite direction. Percent to a decimal. And the example we're going to use is 42%. And we convert that to a decimal, which is equivalent to 0.42. So on our section, 42%, this is our example, would be on the left side. And then here in the middle, this is where we have our steps. What were the steps that we just did? Well, we're going to divide by 100. What does that look like? Well, 42 is going to go inside. We're going to add our decimal. 100 will go on the outside. And then we just divide. Our decimal stays exactly where it's supposed to be. Doesn't move. And then we just divide. So 100, can we subtract that from 4? The answer is no. Can we subtract 100 from 42? Once again, the answer is no. Can we subtract 100 from 420? Yeah, we can. There's actually 4 groups of 100. So 4 times 100 is 400. Remainder 20. Bring down to 0. How many groups of 100 can we subtract from 200? That'd be 2. Then we are left with nothing at the end. And so that's how we end up with 0.42. We divide whatever is behind the decimal, goes inside of the house, and then we're dividing that by 100. Great. So this would be in spot number 2. Okay. We're going to move on the right side down 1 box, and this would be in like spot 4. So spot 4, how do we convert a fraction into a percent? And so on this side, I actually did it in reverse, but my bad. This would be the middle, depending on how you are looking at it, and over here would be the example. So this would be the steps. Sorry about that on number 2. The example that we have is 1/4. How do we convert 1/4? How do we know that it's equal to 25%? Well, we're going to be doing the following. 1, we have to divide the numerator by the denominator. So once again, use our division. We got our numerator, denominator. Numerator goes on the inside. Denominator goes on the outside. And then we just divide. So 4 goes into 1, 0. We can't subtract any 4 from 1. We can subtract 2 groups of 4 from 10. That will give us a remainder 2. Bring down to 0. And then we can subtract 5 groups of 4, which will end up with a remainder of 0. So we see once again, we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, and then finally add the percent sign at the end of the factor. Now, for the last part, spot number 6. Spot number 6 is converting a decimal. How do we convert a decimal into a fraction? The decimal that we're going to use will be the one that we just had, which was 0.25. And we want to convert that into a fraction of 1/4. So our example is 0.25. We want to convert that to 1/4. And so when we look at this value of 0.25, the first thing that we want to do is determine the final place value. Okay? And so when we look at this, we see that there are 2 place values. We have a first and we have a second, moving from the decimal. We have the tenths. That's what this is right here. This is our tenths place. And then we have our hundredths. And so this place value of 1/100ths is letting us know what the denominator is going to be. And so this decimal has the furthest to the right place value of hundredths. So that means the denominator is going to be 100th. If this was just 0.2, that would only be 1 place value, which would be the tenths place. That means the denominator would be equal to 10. If it was moved over to 1 more, the 3rd place value would be the thousandths, so that the denominator would be 1,000. Because this is the hundredths, this is going to be 100 as a denominator. And what goes in the numerator? Well, the numerator is just going to be all the values that are behind the decimal. In this case, it's 25. But 25 over 100 isn't our final answer. Our final answer is 1/4. How do we get 1/4? You're probably already thinking to yourself, this word, yes, you are correct. We need to simplify. We're going to make it smaller. And what would be the equivalent fraction? Well, when we divide by 25, both our numerator and denominator, 25 divided by 25 is equal to 1, and 100 divided by 25 is equal to 4. So that's how we ended up with 1/4. For our final section here of part 6, converting a decimal to a fraction, we now have the following. We now have our completed fractions, decimals, and percents manipulative that we are going to be using in class. It's going to be super important that you don't lose this. Keep this with you. We're going to use this quite a bit. You may use this quite a bit, and you are free to use this for any homework, any classwork, any assessment that we are going to be taking, so that you know how to convert fractions to decimals, fractions to percents, decimals to percents, decimals to fractions, or percents to decimals, or percents to fractions. We have examples in here. You are free to use them, and I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments or send me an email.